So in this video, I'm going to go over some tips on how you can teach your child to use a fork by themselves. And so my first tip is for you to give them a fork to have during mealtime. And so as soon as your child is ready for soft, solid foods at like 8-9 months of age, when you're basically going to be introducing maybe some scrambled eggs or some noodles or toast at that time, that's a great opportunity for you to give them their own fork for them to explore with as they're learning to feed themselves. And so even if they're not using it properly by trying to pierce food or bringing it to their mouth, they're gaining familiarity with a fork itself, so that way when it comes time to pierce, it won't be such a novel item that they're looking to explore at that time. And so my second tip is to make sure that you select a fork that has a short handle. And that's important because that will make it easier for your child to grasp the fork using their fingertips or achieve a better grasp pattern on it itself, so that way they can successfully coordinate bringing it to their mouths when they're ready for that skill. You'll essentially want to avoid things like plastic utensils like a plastic fork or a regular sized like salad fork or dinner fork, as those can be more challenging to coordinate because the handle is longer. And so my third tip is to use big but soft chunks of food so that way it's easier to learn how to pierce. So some examples include like cut up banana or noodles or cooked vegetables like steamed broccoli or roasted potatoes or some scrambled eggs. And that's because it's a lot easier for the child to push the fork through and pierce the food onto the fork while they're learning that skill versus foods that are tougher to pierce, like say some meats. And so another thing that you'll want to consider having as well is a suction bowl or a suction placemat or suction plate. There's several different ones out there, but the idea is that you ensure that whatever they are having their food positioned on isn't going to move when they are trying to learn how to pierce. So that way it'll make them that much more successful in just working on that skill alone versus having to manage the plate staying still as well. And so my last tip is for you to pierce the food onto the fork for your child. So all they have to do is bring that preloaded fork to their mouth. Sometimes children get really frustrated when learning how to pierce food with a fork. And so we want to praise not only those attempts that they're making, but also keep their interest in using the fork. So preloading the fork, so that way all they have to do is bring that loaded fork to their mouth, means that they're getting the reward of the food to their mouth, which will keep them interested and keep them trying. And so once your child has gotten really good at being able to bring that loaded fork to their mouth and then also to really good at piercing those soft, solid foods, then you can progress them to piercing any other types of foods like those meats or those berries that can be a little bit trickier to target and pierce through onto the fork. And so those are my tips on how you can teach your child to use a fork by themselves. Thanks for watching my video.